Uh, Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back, October 20, 2021. Uh, as you might already heard from different media, the evil man in Ethiopian Prime Minister, I call him evil man, or Gujile, as the Tigrayans call him, the Gujile Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia, attacked the civilian targets again in Mekele. Uh, he got only one superiority left in that country to use air force on civilian targets. He cannot reverse the military defeat he's facing for almost like uh, 8 months. Uh, they got defeated, keep defeated by TDF forces. Now the battle is at the doorstep of Kombolcha, Dese, and other major cities. And the casualties they are suffering is staggering, and they are losing heavy weapons. But what they are doing is now threatening civilians, killing civilians, destroying civilian structures in Mekele. That's the only option they left. They tried with everything. They tried by using massive military recruitment without even proper training, using human shield as a weapon, sending civilians, youth, elderly, without weapons, giving them false propaganda. They can take tanks or heavy artillery without using any gun, or buy stone or machete. That's the propaganda they are giving. So that didn't work. Now, uh, the same strategy they used in Waldia, defending Waldia and other cities, now they are using the same civilian, using civilian as human shield to defend Waldia. No, I mean Kombolcha and Dese. So the situation is tough on Abiy Ahmed and the prosperity officials. And the curfew is extended to Debre Brahan now, very close to Addis Ababa, Debre Brahan. So the curfew restrictions of movement of people and vehicles in place. Already in Kombolcha, it's already curfew in Dese. Now the curfew is in Debre Brahan. So he cannot change this reality by attacking civilian targets in Mekele. No way. He cannot win this war by using youth and elderly and women as a human shield. He lost, and we said Concerned Citizens Media repeatedly called upon him to resign multiple times, and asked or urged Ethiopians to act, to demand his resignation. He is not good for that country. He is not good for the people. He is not good for leadership. The country is going to the toilet. Now he is destroying civilian structures by using air force, by ordering air force in Mekele. So I repeat again, Ethiopians should demand his removal from office. His strategy is not working. Bloodshed is increasing, and civilians are dying. And he is not the proper leader for that country. So again, those who are supporting him, we can't do nothing about that, but because they are supporting him blindly, or they are try to gain some ground, some claims from Mekele and some in Benishangul Gumuz and the Oromia region. They can do whatever they can until the right situation is calm. Then they will be challenged. But Ethiopia is going to the toilet. Ethiopia is going in the wrong direction under this current leadership. And I repeat in Afan Oromo, namichi kun biyyaafis hin tolu, namaafis hin tolu, muka citaafis hin tolu. This person is not good for anyone. It's not good for that country. ይሄ ሰውዬ ለማንም አይበጅም፣ ለዛች አገር አይበጅም። ይሄ ሰውዬ አገሪቷን መቀመቅ እየከተታት ነው እና ዝም ብላችሁ በጭፍን ከሱ ጋር ገደል ከምትገቡ ኢትዮጵያውያኖች you need to wake up and save the country from this guy, this evil man. He was sucking Ethiopian bloods for the last 27 years plus 3 years. He is not good man. So let's start with channel 4, I think, on the attack on Mekele. Then we can head to other news. So, by the way, OLF is also advancing in different cities. Also today held a graduation ceremony for new recruits in Central Shoa, very close to Arat Kilo, or Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's palace. So he is no way he can survive in that country. It's better for him to resign before too late. Let's listen to this news, then we can go to the other coverage.
Tigray's capital, Mekele, has been targeted by Ethiopia's air forces as the rebel Tigray People's Liberation Front continue to challenge government forces. The strikes hit industrial buildings that the Ethiopian government claimed were being used by the TPLF to make and repair heavy weapons, a claim denied by the group who said the building was a warehouse being used to store tires. Rescuers at the scene managed to evacuate several people. Doctors at a nearby hospital said at least 5 people have been injured and are being treated.
I was in the store and I didn't hear the jet coming. It was sudden when I heard the explosion. We were 2 people in the store and I was asleep on the floor as I heard the explosion. It was people who picked me up. And when the explosions continued, I went out and saw a person that I know injured on the ground.
The city was also hit from the air on Monday, leaving at least 3 children dead. Ethiopia's government said that airstrike also targeted buildings where Tigrayan forces were repairing armaments. The attack shattered the windows of Mekele General Hospital about 1 kilometer away and damaged nearby homes. It's the second time this week that Abiy Ahmed's government has carried out airstrikes on the Tigrayan capital, Mekele, the latest escalation in his fight against the TPLF in their heartland, targeting their leadership and infrastructure. At the same time, the fighting has intensified between the two sides in the Amhara region to the north of the capital, Addis Ababa. For the past year, the Ethiopian government has been engaged in a civil war with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, who used to run the country. Thousands have been killed, more than 2 million have been displaced since the fighting began. The UN and other international bodies have repeatedly warned that famine and sexual abuse are being used by both sides as weapons of war. It said that Tigray needs about 500 trucks of life-saving assistance every week, but less than 10% of that has been distributed in recent months because of shortages of supplies, harassment of drivers, and lack of fuel. Earlier this month, Ethiopia expelled 7 senior UN officials who the government accused of meddling in the country's political affairs. The US government has said that all parties fighting in Ethiopia face the possibility of sanctions. Violence looks set to escalate in Tigray and in the neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar, with fierce fighting reported around the strategically important city of Desai to the north of the capital. The fear here is that, with famine threatening to engulf large parts of the country, the conflict is likely to deal millions of vulnerable Ethiopians a double blow.
Okay, so that is channel 4, and Okay, sorry. Apologies.
Okay, thanks everyone. In a short while.
No, I don't need now. So I will be back with other videos, but that's the opening. And it looks like, when the country is fighting with another country, that kind of strike may be, you know, uh, expected. But when you are destroying your own people, when you are destroying your own country's property, that's shame on Abiy Ahmed. Shame. Uh, he was advised by United States, by European Union, by Ethiopians uh, to end this war, to end this bloodshed, and facilitate the dialogue, the reconciliation with all stakeholders. But he refused. The things are now out of control. So now he is using the Air Force against his own people, against the civilian targets. So I think the United States and the European Union, I know they are considering some sanctions, but they should also uh, devise a way to control the Ethiopian Air Force by creating no-fly zone in Mekele. They can do it the same way they did in Iraq when Saddam Hussein was bombing Kurdish targets, and also in Libya. So don't allow this guy to kill civilians, to destroy civilian properties, to destroy the country's infrastructure, in the economy. Ethiopia is already dead economically. So this war is creating more catastrophe. So it should be controlled. I know Ethiopians cannot do anything about this guy because the second most populous ethnic group supporting this guy, the Amaras, it's very hard for now because they are behind him. They are happy about this bombardment in Mekele. So I think the U.S., in addition to imposing sanctions, they should consider the no-fly zone in Mekele. That will save civilian lives and civilian structure. Europeans and US should consider. We cannot get anything from United Nations because of Russia, China opposition. So these countries, the European Union and US should consider imposing no-fly zone in Mekele, in Tigray. That's the only way you can save civilian infrastructure and human lives. If that doesn't happen, this madman, this dangerous man, will conduct another airstrike again against civilians in Mekele. So that's I want to stop there, but that's my suggestion for United States and the European Union to stop this madman from destroying lives in Ethiopia. Let's read other. Another news also. AFP, how they are reported on this one. Many news outlets, news agencies talking about this airstrike. Let's read one, then proceed to the other news. Ethiopia launched new airstrikes in Tigray. Ethiopian military launched new airstrikes on Tigray Wednesday, the second round of bombardment this week against rebel targets in the war-battered region. The raid marked a sharp escalation in brutal year-long conflict pitting government forces and their allies against the Tigray People Liberation Front, the region's once dominant ruling party. The international community has voiced alarm about the new attacks in north, where fighting since November has killed thousands of people and left millions in need of emergency aid. The government said it bombed TPLF weapons caches in the regional capital Mekele and the town of Agbe, which lies about 80 kilometers, 50 miles to the west, after 2 raids on Mekele on Monday. It targeted at the facilities that TPLF have turned into arms construction and repair armament sites, government spokesman Legesse Tulu said on the latest Mekele strike. Dr. Hailom Kabede, research director at Mekele's Haider Referral Hospital, said 8 people had been wounded, including a pregnant woman. United Nations spokesman Farah Haq told reporters that initial information indicated some civilians, including women and children, were injured. It was heavy and the jet was so close, one local resident told AFP, with witness reporting thick clouds of smoke rising up over the city. The United States, which has threatened sanctions if the warring parties do not reach a negotiated settlement, issued a strong statement denouncing the violence. The conflict has created a deep humanitarian crisis, with the United Nations saying around 2 million people have been displaced and hundreds of thousands plunged into famine-like conditions. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government, barely 2 weeks into its new term, seems to be waging a new offensive against the TPLF, which dominated national politics for almost 3 decades before he took power in 2018. William Davison, the International Crisis Group senior analyst for Ethiopia, said the strikes appear to be part of effort to weaken Tigray's armed resistance as the TPLF makes gain in the neighboring Amara region. Along with superior manpower, control of the skies is one of the few remaining areas of military advantage for the federal government. TPLF spokesman Getachew Reda said Wednesday's raid on Mekele hit a residential area, causing injury to civilians and harm to property. Abiy's reaction to his losses in the ongoing fighting is to target civilians hundreds of kilometers away from the battlefield, he said on Twitter. He later claimed TPLF fighters had taken control of at least 2 towns in Amara, putting the cities of Kombolcha and the nearby Dese, where tens of thousands have sought refuge from the rebel advance since July, with an artillery range. Much of northern Ethiopia is under a communication blackout, and access for journalists is restricted, making battlefield claims difficult to independently verify. Credit Agence France Presse. So, Ethiopia claim their bombardment is targeted not civilian structures. They are targeted weapon manufacturing or repair. But the reality is, according to the witness, that's a civilian target. They are, Mesfin Engineering and the cement factory. These are civilian targets, and will not help Abiy Ahmed to win this war. I'm telling you, will not. Maybe he can satisfy his supporters. They can have some joy today, but no. Minister of Justice received Deputy U.S. Envoy for Horn of Africa. The Minister of Justice, Dr. Nasir Eddin Abdul Bari, received in his office Wednesday the Deputy U.S. Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Peyton North, and praised the great support that the United States has been providing to the Sudanese people and backing to the full transition process to civilian democratic rule in the country. Dr. Abdul Bari pointed out that the commitment to the constitutional document and the political dialogue between the parties of the constitutional document is the way to surpass all the political crises that are currently facing the country. The minister stressed that the constitutional document and the commitment to it represent the greatest guarantor for success of the transition process and holding the elections at the end of the transitional period. On his part, the U.S. Deputy Envoy indicated that his visit to Khartoum comes as part of the continuous consultation between the two countries on various issues and to arrange for the visit of the U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Jeffrey Feltman, to Sudan by the end of the current week. He stated that he exchanged views with a number of Sudanese officials and politicians regarding the challenges facing the transition process, stressing that bridging the gap between the parties to the transition is the most important step at the present time. He stressed that they, as friends of the transition to full civic democratic rule, will do their best to help Sudan overcome the current crisis, adding that they will do everything in their power to resolve differences between the various parties. Credit Suna News Agency. So Sudan is facing challenge, protesters every day. And for some reason, there is a conflict between civilian administration and the military administration. Egypt swears in nearly 100 women judges in a first. Egypt has in a first appointed 98 women as judges in one of the country's main judicial bodies, the State Council. The judges were sworn in before the council's chief judge in an event in the capital Cairo on Tuesday. It comes months after President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called for women to join the country's two main judicial bodies, the council and the public prosecution. Since its inception in 1948, the State Council has been exclusively male and until now actively rejected female applicants. In past years, women have opposed the decision of the council, arguing that they were discriminated against. So that's good news for women participation in Egypt. Blast at U.S. outpost in Syria. No American injuries, U.S. officials. A U.S. outpost in southern Syria was attacked on Wednesday, but there were no report of any American casualties from the blast, U.S. officials told Reuters. The officials, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said it was too early to say who was responsible for the attack. One of the officials said it was believed to have been a drone attack. The garrison, known as TANF, is located in a strategic area near Syria's Tanf border crossing with Iraq and Jordan. The garrison was first set up when Islamic State fighters controlled eastern Syria bordering Iraq, but since the militants were driven out, it is seen as part of the larger U.S. strategy to contain Iran's military reach in the region. Tanf is the only position with a significant U.S. military presence in Syria outside the Kurdish-controlled north. Credit Reuters. Facebook is planning to rebrand the company with a new name. Facebook is planning to change its company name next week to reflect its focus on building the metaverse, according to a source with direct knowledge of the matter. The coming name change, which CEO Mark Zuckerberg plans to talk about at the company's annual Connect conference on October 28th, but could unveil sooner, is meant to signal the tech giant ambitions to be known for more than social media and all the ills that entail. The rebrand would likely position the blue Facebook app as one of many products under a parent company overseeing groups like Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus, and more. A spokesperson for Facebook declined to comment for the story. Facebook already has more than 10,000 employees building consumer hardware like AR glasses that Zuckerberg believes will eventually be as ubiquitous as smartphones. In July, he told The Verge that over the next several years, we will effectively transition from people seeing us as primarily being a social media company to being a metaverse company. A rebrand could also serve to further separate the futuristic work Zuckerberg is focused on from the intense scrutiny Facebook is currently under for the way its social platform operates today. A former employee turned a whistleblower, Francis Hogan, recently leaked a trove of damning internal documents to the Wall Street Journal and testified about them before Congress. Antitrust regulations in the United States and elsewhere are trying to break the company up, and the public trust in how Facebook does business is falling. Credit The Verge. Okay, I think this is the last one. Russia scrambles fighter jets to escort U.S. strategic bombers over Black Sea. Russia scrambles two Sukhoi Su-30 fighter jets to escort a pair of U.S. B-1B strategic bombers over the Black Sea, Russia Defense Ministry said on Wednesday. An incident that coincided with a visit to the region by the U.S. Secretary of Defense. The supersonic U.S. Cold War-era planes were originally designed to carry nuclear bombs and missiles, but now carry conventional payloads. Russian fighters crew identified the aerial targets as two U.S. Air Force supersonic strategic B-1B bombers accompanied by two KS-135 refueling planes and escorted them over the waters of the Black Sea, the defense minister said in a statement accompanied by video footage of the U.S. aircraft in flight. After the foreign warplanes had been turned away from Russia's state border, the Russian fighters safely returned to their home airbase. It said the Russian aircraft had carried out their flight in strict compliance with international airspace rules and that Russia's borders had not been breached. Visiting Ukraine on Tuesday, Lloyd Austin, the US Defense Secretary, said that Russia was an obstacle to peace in eastern Ukraine and called on Moscow to end destabilizing activities in the Black Sea and along Ukraine's border. Moscow blames Kiev for a lack of progress in implementing a peace deal covering eastern Ukraine, something Ukraine denies. A similar incident with a B-1B occurred on Sunday over the Sea of Japan, just days after an incident with a US naval destroyer, also in the Far East. B-1B bombers are being used in a series of exercises with NATO allies across Europe, encompassing the Arctic, the Baltics, and the Black Sea, Air Force magazines reported earlier this month. Credit Reuters. So that's, as I said before, one of the areas we have to watch the relationship and the encounter between Russia and the United States and China and the United States and the joint exercise of China and Russia, North Korea, Iran. These are the hot spots in the global stage, so we have to watch it. So that's all the reading part. Let's share a couple of videos and end today's presentation. Thank you again.
Cheers erupt as families are about to be reunited for the first time in months. These political prisoners scan the crowd, looking for their loved ones outside this prison in Yangon, Myanmar. When they finally find them, tears of joy. Thousands of reunions like this are expected to take place in the coming days after Myanmar's coup leaders issued an amnesty for some 5,600 political prisoners. Most were arrested in February as the military deposed the elected government. Others were detained months later during anti-coup protests.
My sister was arrested after someone reported her for publishing books. They ordered 50 books from her and arrested her with police vehicles and military trucks. I hope that she gets released soon. She has 2 kids at home. I want her home as soon as possible.
The timing of this amnesty comes a week before the regional bloc ASEAN is due to meet. In an unprecedented move, ASEAN leaders have excluded Myanmar's military leader Min Aung Hlaing from attending that summit. It's the most severe sanction the bloc has ever handed to a member state in 5 decades.
This is a big deal. Telling the leaders of one of the ASEAN member states that it cannot attend the summit, at which it would have used the footage of to try and demonstrate its international legitimacy to people in Myanmar, to try and use that to suggest that they should stop resisting because the coup d'etat in February was a fait accompli. That is a pretty big deal, and it was something that took ASEAN a long time to get to.
Myanmar authorities released more than 2,000 anti-coup protesters from prisons across the country in June, including journalists critical of the military government. The latest and larger amnesty comes while there's increasing pressure on the military leaders to engage with their opponents, nearly 9 months after seizing power.
Steps like this that have been taken by ASEAN this week, they increase the likelihood of a split within the military, because again, they do care about the appearance of international legitimacy.
The former head of government, Aung San Suu Kyi, who was also arrested in February, is not expected to be released. Many of those already set free say they were made to sign an agreement saying they won't engage in political activities in the future, a trade-off many were willing to take to see their families again. Leah Harding, Al Jazeera.
I think you've heard from my colleagues earlier.
Okay, this is the last one.
Just start out by thanking all of you for being here today. We kind of expected you. This afternoon, the Security Council will discuss the latest DPRK provocation. It announced submarine-launched ballistic missile test on October 19th local
this is
time.
a
The United
UN
States and many
briefing
of the
on North
council
Korea.
members have condemned the launch, which violated multiple Security Council resolutions. We should not look at this most recent launch in isolation. It is the latest in a series of reckless provocations. Since the beginning of September, the DPRK has launched multiple ballistic missiles, one of which the DPRK claimed included a new hypersonic glide vehicle capability. These are unlawful activities. They are in violation of multiple Security Council resolutions, and they are unacceptable. Each new advancement of the DPRK's weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs destabilizes the region and threatens international peace and security. The United States calls on the DPRK to refrain from further provocations and engage in sustained and substantive dialogues. We also call on all member states to fulfill their sanctions obligations under existing Security Council resolutions so that we can prevent the DPRK from accessing the funds, the technology, the know-how it needs to further develop its unlawful weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs. Our position remains clear. The DPRK must abide by the Security Council resolutions, and it is time to engage in sustained and substantive dialogue toward the goal of complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. We have offered to meet the DPRK officials without any preconditions, and we have made clear that we hold no hostile intent toward the DPRK. This does not serve the people of North Korea. We are committed to working closely with the international community to reduce tensions and maintain peace and stability in the region. And our commitment to the defense of the Republic of Korea and Japan is ironclad. Our goal remains the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and we are still prepared to engage in serious and sustained diplomacy to that end. Thank you very much.
Unilateral sanctions on DPRK.
Look, we already have a sanctions regime in place. We just need to be more serious about the implementation of that regime. Frankly, the 17-18 committee is not doing its job. We need to enforce these violations. We need to ramp up the implementation of the sanctions, and we've not done that. And particularly, we need to focus on those who are violating sanctions and others who are engaging in activities that break the sanctions. Thank you.
There are growing voices who say those sanctions are causing starvation.
Okay. So that's the United States position on North Korea testing or firing missiles. So I reported on that one too. That's a very serious, challenging or very serious issue in that area, North Korea. How can you handle a nuclear country? So could be supported by other sides, China and Russia. And the sanction is in place. But so that's the update concerning that missile test and what the United Nations is doing. But let me conclude today's presentation. Ethiopians, please, especially those who are supporting this guy, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, you should end the support. He is not trustworthy. He is incompetent to lead that country. He is causing misery to Ethiopians. He is destroying the country. He is destroying the economy of the country by attacking civilians. The justice system is broken. It's nothing good about that country under the current leadership. So Ethiopians, think again, especially those who are supporting him. You need to see, are you getting something from this leadership? I know you worry about Wolqayit Tagade and Set Humara, but you are losing a big picture. You are losing Ethiopia. You are losing the big country by supporting this guy instead of looking at small claim. It's better to look the big picture and save the country from destruction. Ethiopia is heading maybe possibly into the situation in Libya or Iraq or Syria slowly, because he already started bombarding the cities, infrastructure, and the civilians. So this is not a good sign. We said ይሄ ሰውዬ ጤነኛ አይደለም፣ ለሀገሪቱም ለህዝቡም የሚጠቅም አይደለም። ሰዎች ንቁና ራሳችሁን አደራጅታችሁ ካሁን በኋላ ይህን ሰውዬ ሰፖርት እንዳታደርጉ። Don't support this guy. You have to say enough is enough. He lied multiple times. You know, he's failed in his leadership. Command post everywhere. Restriction of movement everywhere. War everywhere. And inflation. You know, economic downturn. And diplomatic isolation. Shutting off embassies. Nothing good about this guy. Nothing. So you Ethiopians, you have a chance to reverse the situation. Don't support this guy blindly. Call for him to resign immediately before too much damage is coming to that country. Already the country is collapsing. And these attacks are very serious one. You think now it only impacts the Tigrayans? No, it impacts the whole country if you worry about Ethiopia. So we have to say enough is enough and end this violence by removing this guy. The second one is the United States, European Union, please get serious. Your threat is not working. Get serious and put no-fly zone in Mekele and impose the sanctions you're talking about. Warning, threatening doesn't work with Abiy Ahmed. He wants to see some tough action from the global community. So that's enough about Ethiopia, about this guy. But I beg the international community to take it seriously, these civilian casualties and these serious attacks on civilian properties. And I want to conclude by appreciating the Konso community in the South, for their standing with the Borana Oromos by sending animal feeds and other assistance for starving cattle, for starving people. This is a very good foundation, very good sign of good friendship, close relationship we should create everywhere in Ethiopia. The Konso stood with Oromos. They say Oromo means Konso, Konso means Oromo, which is very good phrase, very good expression, and the Concerned Citizens Media appreciate you for doing that, for standing with Oromos in Borana at this very, very challenging time. Boronas are suffering from drought, and no aid is coming from the government or international organization. Cattle are dying. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much, the Konso community, for doing that. So that will be the conclusion for today's presentation. Please share, subscribe to my channel, and like my videos so we can we can grow Concerned Citizens Media and be voice for voiceless, and so we can share global news. Thank you again. Be safe, and so long, everyone.